Youth pastors are typically the tip of the sword when it comes to LGBTQ questions in a church. That's because so many of their kids are asking the questions. I was talking with a youth pastor from an urban area, an Asian American setting, and for 5 years, he'd been asking his head pastor and his elders, what's our stance around LGBTQ questions? What should I be teaching the kids? And they would not answer him. It was too frightening for the church. And so he was left literally with no direction at all. There are three main reasons that we are finding youth pastors want to talk about this issue and they want their churches to talk about it. And the first is evangelism. Recently, a youth pastor came to me. He's in an urban setting. It's not a very big church, but they have like 20 kids, mostly teens. And he said to me, recently, my kids gave me an ultimatum. He said, my own kids came to youth group and they said to me afterwards, Dad, we are no longer going to invite anyone to this church until we can welcome our gay friends. He had no idea what to do. He couldn't bring it up. It was a non-issue, a non-starter for their church. He felt completely stuck. And the issue for him is he just wanted to reach more kids. And if his very own kids weren't bringing anyone, he knew that the other kids were not either. The second issue a lot of youth pastors have voiced around these questions is they want their kids to grow in faith. And sometimes this issue, these questions are what prohibits it because the church has not done a good job discipling the whole congregation. So a pastor I was talking with on Zoom not long ago, he says to me, we have these kids and we're training them to think for themselves. We're training them to study scripture for themselves and to think for themselves so that their parents' faith could become their own. The problem is many of these kids end up becoming either affirming or at least tolerant of the LGBTQ community, and their parents think of it as an abomination. And so now there's this tension because the kids go home and tell their parents how they're growing in faith, and that includes welcoming LGBT people. And their parents call the head pastor and say, you need to fire the youth pastor. The youth pastors are saying, please, let's talk about this as a congregation. So even if there's theological diversity, we can understand how we're reading scripture. We can talk to each other and learn from each other, and we don't have to just kick people out for seeing things differently. The third reason why youth pastors have this conversation with me is because in their church, they're tasked with keeping families in the church. And they know that this is a crucial issue. Recently, in a very large Pew Research poll, it said that 47% of people who leave the church, and this is, I think, 2022, said that they left the church because of its harsh treatment towards LGBTQ people. 47%. So this one youth pastor, actually wasn't a youth pastor, was a volunteer, called me up and said, hey, what should I do with LGBT kids in our youth group? It's a conservative church. And she says to me, the church has asked me to volunteer with these kids because after a year, they could not find a single other volunteer who would take on this small group of LGBTQ kids. But they were committed to their families not leaving the church. So they really wanted someone. The youth pastors won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So they've asked me to lead a group of LGBT kids. How should I do that? What should I do? So we spent some time coaching and working it through. But this is another reason why youth pastors want to have the conversation. They realize that families are leaving the church because, well, they feel like the church is not loving well. And whether that means taking a traditional position or an affirming position or a third way position in between, the question is always, will we love well? And if we don't have the conversation and don't let our youth speak into the conversation, then we are really, really hurting our churches and our chance to keep people involved and witness to Christ.